Hi, sixth graders, it's Miss Wallace, and we're going to be taking another set of notes, so make sure you grab your notebook. And this week's topic is going to be focused on multiplication of fractions. So it's very important you know your multiplication facts. If you don't, you need to be studying them. You can simply Google a multiplication game and practice your multiplication facts, but we are going to multiply. The title of this page is Multiply Fractions by whole numbers. Multiply fractions by whole numbers. And we're going to be focusing, like I said, a lot on multiplication of fractions. Later on in the week, we'll do multiply fractions by fractions, and we're going to multiply mixed numbers by mixed numbers. But today, we're going to focus on just multiplying a fraction by a whole number. And so what does that mean? Well, let's look at a problem, and actually we're going to illustrate one first. So the first problem we're going to look at is 3, so that's my whole number. 3 times, and remember we can write times as a dot, not a decimal dot, but a dot that is in the middle of the line. And then times 1/5, which is my fraction. So again, I'm multiplying a whole number times a fraction. And so one way I can think about this multiplication problem is like this. What this means is 3 groups of 1/5. So remember, multiplication means repeated addition over and over again. And so what this is saying is if you have 3 times 1/5, I want 1/5 3 times. And so one way we can do this is we can illustrate it with a picture. And if I want 3 groups of 1/5, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 3 boxes. So 1, 2, 3. 3 boxes, and they're each going to contain 1/5. Now, if I want to split my box up into fifths, I need to make 4 lines, so it's always one less line than you have spaces. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, and so those are fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4, those are fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4, those are fifths, and I'm going to shade in 1 out of each of those boxes. So see how this illustrates 3 groups of 1/5. And so how do I find my final answer? Well, here's the picture of 3 groups of 1/5. But in order to find my answer, all I have to do is count each of the individual pieces. So there are 1, 2, 3 pieces shaded. And what size piece are they? Well, they're all fifths. And so 3/5 is going to be my final answer. So the answer to 3 times 1/5 is 3/5. And that is how you multiply. That is one way to multiply a whole number times a fraction. Now, let's look at another one. Again, we're illustrating these with pictures right now. Let's try the problem 2 times 2/3. 2 times 2/3. So again, we have our whole number, we have our fraction, and we are going to illustrate it. So we think about what this means. This, of course, means 2 times 2/3 is 2 groups of 2/3. And we're going to draw our pictures. Now, I always prefer to draw rectangles. I just think it's easier, but of course you could draw circles. When you get a lot of pieces, it's kind of hard to draw circles, but we're thinking about 2/3 here, so if you want to make thirds, you make like a peace sign. That's how we create a picture that represents thirds. And we've got 2 groups, so I drew 2 circles, 2 groups of, and then I'm going to have 2/3 in each one. So there's a third, there's a third. So there's my first group of 2/3, and we're going to shade in 2 more thirds here. And so we've got 2 groups of 2/3. We're going to count the pieces that we shaded, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is 4 over what size are each of these pieces? They are thirds. So our final answer is 4/3. Now, we're not completely finished with this problem because, of course, we noticed that this is a top-heavy fraction. So if we do end up with an improper fraction or a top-heavy fraction, we do want to change it into a mixed number. Your answers will always be written as mixed numbers. So remember, one way to do that is to use the around the world method. So I'm going to put the top heavy number inside the division bar. I'm going to put the 3 on the outside, and then I just simply divide. So 3 goes into 4 one whole time because 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract to get your remainder. 4 minus 3 is 1. And then we go around the world. So 1 whole and 1/3. third. And so actually our final answer should be 1 whole and 1/3. And so that's another example of how to illustrate a multiplication problem of a fraction times a whole number. Now, the problem we run into is what happens when our numbers are really big and we don't want to draw out a picture that represents that. So let's look at one like this. Let's look at the example, the fraction 3/5 times 7. Now, it does not matter what order they're in, right? It does not matter whether the whole number comes first or the fraction comes first. So here, it's just flipped around from what we had up here with the whole number first fraction, but it doesn't matter. So here, what we're going to have to think about is our whole number represents the groups. The fraction represents how much we need to shade in. So here we have 3/5 times 7. We can think of this as 7 groups. So the whole number represents the groups. 7 groups of 3/5. And so it's going to take me a little longer to draw out 7 boxes. And so I can do it, right? We could draw, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Try to make your boxes the same size. I got that one a little small. 5, 6, 7. And we need 3/5 in each one, so we're going to split them up into fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And how much am I going to shade in each one? 3/5. I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3 pieces here. 1, 2, 3 pieces there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. And so once you get all of those sets of 3 shaded in, then of course we're ready to count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 is how many pieces we have shaded, and they are all the size piece of a fifth. Now, again, this could be a really long process depending on what this whole number is. Imagine if this whole number had been 17 and you had to draw out 17 boxes, or 27, you had to draw out 27 boxes. So this can get really long depending on what this whole number is. But can you see a pattern between what the problem has been and the answer that we've been getting? I'll give you a second to look at that. Hopefully you really realized it here on this last one, because 3/5 times 7, when I counted these groups of 3, what I was really counting is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 over and over again 7 times. And so one of the ways, where did this 21 come from? One of the ways I could think about this is that it's just 3 times 7. So I'm multiplying the numerator times the whole number. Up here I did the same thing. Whole number times the numerator gave me the 4, and then the denominator stayed the same. Same thing here. Whole number times the numerator, that gave me the 3, and then the denominator just came along for the ride. So we're going to talk about a shortcut way where, of course, we would not have to draw out this picture. Now, we're not finished with this problem yet, though, because it is top heavy, and 21/5 that will be able to change into a mixed number just like we did up here. So, of course, we are going to divide it. So we put the top heavy number inside, 5 goes on the outside. We have to think about how many times does 5 go into 21. Well, if you count it by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, it goes in 4 times, 4 whole times. Because 4 times 5 is 20, subtract and you get 1. And so our final answer here is going to be 4 wholes and 1/5. 4 wholes and 1/5 is our final answer. So now let's try the shortcut and let's see if we can't come up with some answers a little more easily without necessarily having to draw a picture. So we're calling this the shortcut. It's just the quicker way of doing this. And so let's actually just look at the problem that we just looked at. So if I wanted to do this problem, 3/5 times 7, and I did not want to have to draw out the picture, one thing we can do, and one thing I would suggest doing, is making sure that we multiply only the numerator by the whole number. Of course, we do not do the denominator times the whole number. And so one way to ensure that you do that is to always put your whole number over 1. So I'm just going to very simply when I see a whole number, I'm going to put it over 1 because, of course, 7 over 1 is the same thing as just 7. That ensures that everything here is lined up. So can you see what we're going to do here? It's 3 times 7, which I'm just multiplying the top. So that gave me 21. And then on the bottom, we would just do 5 times 1, which keeps it 5. That ensures that that bottom number stays the same and I don't accidentally multiply 5 by 7 as well, right? And of course, we found up here, we don't have to do it again, but we know that 21 over 5 is 4 1/2. So let's try a couple more like this. So let's say that we have the problem 1/6 times 8 wholes. And so again, if you will think to yourself, if I see a whole number and I'm multiplying it by a fraction, put that whole number over 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply the numbers on the top and multiply the numbers on the bottom, and I'm going to keep everything straight. So if we see our whole number, put it over 1. We're going to do numerator times numerator. 1 times 8, which is 8, gives me 8 on the top. And on the bottom, we do 6 times 1, and that gives me a 6. We do end up here again with a top-heavy fraction, so of course I'm going to need to do a step to change it into a mixed number. So 8 goes on the inside, 6 on the outside. 6 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. Go around the world. So 1 and 2 sixths. And believe it or not, we're still not actually done because now we've taken care of the top heaviness. But what do you notice about this 2/6 here? It can actually be simplified. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to simplify 2/6. Think about what will divide both 2 and 6. If you need to write out the factors, you can. 2 multiplies, we can only multiply 1 and 2. 6 is going to be 1 and 6. 2 and 3. So it's 2 that they have in common. So I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 2. And that gives me 1 whole stays the same. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my final answer is going to be 1 1/3. So I'm going to give you 2 at the bottom of our page here. And if you want to write them down and then pause the video and try them yourself. But remember, the process here is fraction times a whole number. Put the whole number over 1. Multiply straight across, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, and then simplify your answer if you need to. So let's try this one. Let's try 3. No, let's try 4 times 2 tenths. And let's try 3 times 5 6. There we go. All right, if you want to pause the video and try those on your own, and then we'll come back and check them. So hopefully you have paused the video and tried these. So let's check our answers. So we've got 4 times 2 tenths. I see the whole number. I'm going to put it over 1. And that ensures that I multiply the top numbers together. 4 times 2 is 8. And on the bottom, we get 1 times 10, which is 10. It's not top heavy, so we do not have to do any dividing, but can we simplify this? Actually, we can. 8 and 10 will both divide by 2. And so 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. And so my answer is 4/5 for the first one. For the next one, of course, I see my whole number times my fraction. I put my whole number over 1. Multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 6 is 6. This one is top heavy. Going to divide. 6 on the outside, 15 on the inside. 6, if we count up, goes in twice because 2 times 6 is 12. And then we do 15 minus 12, which is 3. Go around the world. 3 left over out of 6. We get the answer 2 3/6. And then we ask ourselves, can that actually simplify now that we've changed it into a mixed number? And it can, because 3/6, both 3 and 6 will divide by 3. And so we get 2 wholes, 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 and 1/2 is our final answer. And so that is how you multiply fractions by whole numbers. So you're ready to complete your quizzes practice. If you need any help, please email me.